Good morning to all. I am Dr. Bhavna Tandon, Associate Professor in Electronics and Communication Engineering Department of Chandigarh Engineering College, Landra. Today I am going to give a lecture on control system basics. So we'll start with the definition of control system now. Now what is control system? Control system is an interconnection of components forming a system configuration which will provide a desired system response. Actually, the emphasis is on word desired. So control system is required to control any process variable like temperature, pressure, pH, level at a desired value. So control system is an integral part of any automation system, we can say. So now we talk today in a word we can talk about the Industrial Revolution 4. So in Industrial Revolution 4.0, we have automation as an integral part of Industrial Revolution. So control system is an integral part of any automation system. So this was the definition of control system. Now what is the difference between a simple system and a control system? If we talk about simple system, we give the input and we get the output. But output may or may not be at a desired value. But if we talk about control system, we are emphasized on the word that is desired output. So if we want to have the desired output, we need a control system for that. Now the classification of control system, depending upon the control action, the control system can be divided into two parts, that is open loop control system and closed loop control system. Now we discuss about open loop and closed loop control system with the help of some examples. This is open loop control system. There is no feedback in the open loop control system. No output is fed back to the input. A control system that has no means of comparing the output with the input for the control purposes is known as open loop control system. These are some examples of open loop control system. We can have this example. We have already seen at many airports the electric hand dryer. The hot air that comes out as long as you keep your hand under the machine, irrespective of how much your hand is dried. So no feedback is there in this. So it is an example of open loop control system. Second example is our automatic washing machine, because this machine runs for a preset time. Okay, irrespective how dirty the cloth is, this machine runs according to the preset time, irrespective of washing is completed or not. So it is also an example of open loop control system. Another example is bread toaster. This machine runs again as per adjusted time, irrespective of the color of the bread, irrespective whether the toasting is completed or not. This is also an example of open loop control system. Now, did the conveyor start, and if it did, is it running at the right speed? So no feedback is there. We are not sure about the speed of the conveyor belt here. Only the motor controller gives the input to the motor and motor will run the conveyor belt. The speed of the conveyor is at the desired value or not, it is not sure. So it is an example of open loop control system. Now comes to the second part, that is closed loop control system. In closed loop control system, the output is fed back to the input through the measurement system. This measurement is nothing but the transducer or the sensor. Because for example, if we want to control the temperature of this room, we first have to measure the temperature of this room. So for measurement, we use the transducer. So transducer and sensor is the integral part of any closed loop control system. So we measure the output with the help of transducer and sensor, then we compare it with the set point. For example, if I want to control the room of this temperature at 25 degrees Celsius, 25 degrees Celsius will be the set point. So we compare the set point with the measured value and error will be generated. This is the comparator as shown by the blue color. This one is comparator. And then error is generated. That error was given to the controller. Then controller will do the necessary action so as to control the temperature at the desired value. So the controller will operate some part of process so as to control the temperature at the desired value that is equal to the set point. So this control system will work as long as the error becomes equal to 0. Now we have the examples of closed loop control system here. First example of closed loop control system I am going to discuss is automatic electric iron at our homes. The heating elements in our automatic electric iron are controlled by the output temperature of the iron. The iron is heated for a fixed timer. Then the heating elements will operate and heat the clothes. Then a sensor is there which will actual dryness is fed back to the timer, and accordingly the automatic electric iron will start off or on. So it is an example of closed loop control system. Another closed loop control system is, as we previously discussed about the conveyor belt, if we have a transducer like rotary encoder here, so it will feedback the speed and position of the conveyor belt, and then it is compared with the set point, and the controller will control the motor accordingly to get the desired value of speed and position of the conveyor belt. So it is an example of closed loop control system. It is another example of closed loop control system. We can say the biological example of any closed loop control system, in which if we do the exercise, our body temperature will raise, and that led to the respiration. But when we respire, then our temperature of the body again becomes low. So this is just like a negative feedback. So this can be considered as an example of biological and closed loop control system. So we can have a chart that compares the advantages and disadvantages of open loop versus closed loop control system. In open loop control system, any change in the output has no effect on the input because no feedback exists in open loop control system. But in closed loop control system, changes in the output affects the input, which is possible by the use of feedback. Second difference is output measurement is not required for the operation of system, but in closed loop system the output measurement is required. For that we use sensors or transducers in the feedback loop of the closed loop control system. Third is feedback element is absent, feedback element is present in the closed loop control system. Error detector is absent in the open loop control system, error detector is present and necessary in the closed loop control system. So as we compare the measured value with the set point, so that the error will be generated and the controller will do the necessary action. It is inaccurate and unreliable, and it is highly accurate and reliable. Closed loop control system is highly accurate and reliable because we can control any value of the process variable at desired value. It is highly sensitive to the disturbances. The closed loop control system is less sensitive to any disturbances. Disturbances means the effect of any environmental effects. Okay, so that closed loop control system is very less sensitive to the output or environmental disturbances. It is highly sensitive to the environmental changes. The closed loop control system is less sensitive to the environmental changes. The bandwidth is small. The bandwidth of the closed loop control system is very large. Then it is very simple to construct. This is the advantage. This is the only advantage of open loop control system, that it is very simple to construct and it is cheap. But it is complicated to design because stability is a very important issue while designing any closed loop control system that we'll discuss in the later on lectures. So it is complicated to design, and hence it is costly. Generally, the open loop control system are stable in nature, but the closed loop control system stability is the major consideration while designing. This open loop control system is highly affected by the non-linearities of the process, but the closed loop control system, it reduces the effect of any non-linearities. So these are the comparative chart of open loop control system and closed loop control system. Now what are the requirements of ideal control system? So when we talk about the ideal control system, what should be the features of any ideal control system? The first feature is of course accuracy, because we design the control system so as to maintain the value of any process variable to a desired value. So the main objective of designing any control system is to reduce the error to be equal to 0. What is error? Error is between the set point and the measured value. So as long as the error becomes equal to 0, the control system is said to be ideal control system, and it is 100% accurate. So accuracy is the first feature of an ideal control system. A good control system must be highly accurate. The open loop systems are generally less accurate, and hence the feedback is introduced to reduce the error to be equal to 0. Next is sensitivity. The control system should be designed so as to make it less sensitive to any environmental changes or noise. So a good control system should be very insensitive to the environmental changes like age, etc., but must be sensitive to the input commands. The performance should be affected by small changes in the certain parameters of the system. So these two are the requirements of ideal control system. Next is the external disturbance or noise. As I have already told you, all the physical systems are subjected to external disturbances and noise signals during operation. So the requirement of good control system is that the system must be insensitive to such changes. Next, the stability. Stability is a very important issue while we are designing a control system, because the system is said to be stable when it is BIBO. BIBO means bounded input, bounded output. So if we give bounded input to a system, we must get a bounded output from that. So concept of stability means output of the system must follow the reference input and must produces bounded output for bounded input. So good control system is one which is stable in nature. Next is the bandwidth. The requirement is related to the frequency response of the system. For the input frequency range, it should be given the satisfactory output. Next requirement is the speed. A system should have good speed. This means the output of the system should approach to the desired value as quickly as possible. So system should settle down to its final value as quickly as possible. Last requirement of any ideal control system is the oscillations. The system should exhibit the suitable damping. That is, the control output should follow the changes in the reference input without the large oscillations in the system. So these are some requirements of any ideal control system. Next we discuss about something about Laplace transform, because Laplace transform is a very basic tool that is used for designing any automatic control system, or it is used to evaluate the performance of any automatic control system. So we'll discuss some basics of the Laplace transform here. So to evaluate the performance of an automatic control system, commonly used mathematical tool is Laplace transform. Laplace transform converts the differential equation into an algebraic equations in terms of the S domain. So Laplace transform exists for almost all signals of practical interest. So that's why we prefer Laplace transform for the analysis of any control system. Next is the definition of Laplace transform. The Laplace transform of any function f t is defined as fs Laplace transform of ft is equal to integral of ft e raised to power minus st dt with the limits of integration as 0 to infinity. So this is the formula of Laplace transform. So 0 to infinity ft e raised to power minus st into dt. So where fs is the symbol for Laplace transform, L is the Laplace transform operator, and ft is some function of time t. So the L operator transforms the time domain function ft into an S domain function. S is nothing but a Laplace operator. S can be written as alpha plus j beta, or it can be written as a plus j b, where a is the real part and b is the imaginary part of the Laplace operator. These are some standard Laplace transform formulas that are used for the analysis of any control system. For example, if you take the function as the unit step function ut, the Laplace transform of unit step function is 1 by s. E raised to power minus at, the Laplace transform of e raised to power minus at is 1 by s plus a. Sin omega t, the Laplace transform is omega divided by s square plus omega square. Then we have cos omega t, the Laplace transform is s divided by s plus omega square. Then we have the formula e raised to power minus at sin omega t. The Laplace transform of this function is omega by s plus a whole square plus omega square. E raised to power minus at cos omega t, the Laplace transform is s plus a divided by s plus a whole square plus omega square. Then t, if we have a function t, then the Laplace transform is 1 by s square. If we have a function t raised to power n, the Laplace transform function is n factorial divided by s raised to power n plus 1. E raised to power minus 18 into tn, t raised to power n, the Laplace transform is n factorial divided by s plus a raised to power n plus 1. So these are, this is the impulse function, delta t impulse function, the Laplace transform of impulse function is 1. So these are some basic formulas that are used for the analysis of control system. So now we come to another basic definition, that is transfer function. Transfer function of any linear time invariant system can be defined as the Laplace transform of output divided by Laplace transform of input, provided all initial conditions to be 0. This is the main advantage why we prefer Laplace transform for the analysis of any control system, because the initial conditions are also taken care of while using the Laplace transform. So the relationship between the input and output of a system is given by the transfer function. The ratio of the Laplace transform of output to the Laplace transform of input under the assumptions of 0 initial conditions is defined as transfer function. So if we take the system, this is the system in time domain. If RT is the input and CT is the output of the system, okay, then if we take the Laplace transform of the system, then the transfer function GS will be equal to CS upon RS, the Laplace transform of output divided by Laplace transform of input. So we define the transfer function as GS is equal to Laplace of output divided by Laplace of input equal to CS upon RS. So now the transfer function of closed loop control system. So we discussed about closed loop control system earlier. So if we draw the closed loop control system in terms of Laplace transform, let GS be the Laplace transform of the forward path and HS be the Laplace transform of the feedback path. RS is the Laplace transform of input. CS is the Laplace transform of output. ES is the Laplace transform of error signal. Then this will become a closed loop control system. Now we have to derive the overall transfer function of this closed loop control system. That means we have to derive the ratio of CS upon RS. So how do we derive the ratio of CS upon RS? So we start with the value of ES here. So ES is the output of this comparator. So if we see the comparator here, this is the positive sign and this is the negative sign because we are taking the negative feedback here. So ES can be written as first as equal to RS minus BS. BS is this feedback signal. So first we can write ES is equal to RS minus BS. So what will be RS? RS will be equal to ES plus BS. So this is the first equation. We will refer in the later on derivation. Then we define here HS. HS is the transfer function of the feedback element. The input of HS is CS and the output of HS is BS. So how can we write HS? HS can be written as BS upon CS. BS is the transfer function of the output and CS is the transfer function of the input of this feedback element. So we can write HS is equal to BS upon CS. So we can derive BS from here. BS can be equal to, by cross multiplication we can get BS to be equal to HS dot CS. So now this is the second equation, we will refer later on. Now we come to the gain of the closed loop control system. This GS is the transfer function of the forward path. This GS is having the input as equal to ES and output as equal to CS. So if we write GS can be written as Laplace of output divided by Laplace of input. Output is CS and input of GS is ES. So we can write GS to be equal to CS upon ES. So what will be CS? CS is equal to GS dot ES. So this is the third equation. So we start with here and then we have the equation of comparator, then we have the equation of this feedback element, then we have the equation of this GS. So by combining these three equations, we can get the overall transfer function of the system. Overall transfer function of the system is CS upon RS. So if we combine these three equations, so if we combine these equations, we can get the transfer function as CS upon RS to be equal to GS divided by 1 plus GSHS. So this is the transfer function of any negative feedback control loop system. If we have feedback taken as positive here, then the transfer function will become equal to GS divided by 1 minus GSHS. So this is the formula that will be used later on as a transfer function of a simple closed loop negative feedback control system. Then we come to the mathematical modeling of dynamic system, because for the analysis of any control system, we must have the mathematical model of the plant or the process. Okay, what is mathematical modeling now? Now for doing the analysis of any system, there are two methods. One is practical approach and other is theoretical approach. Practical approach means you are provided with the system, you gave the input to the system, you get the output of the system. So you change the input and you are having the output at different times. Then you draw the graph between output and input and you can get the output response of that system. This is the practical approach. But in practical approach, we have to have the whole setup of the system. But another approach is theoretical approach. In theoretical approach, we are not having a physically available system here, but we have a system on the copy pen. So we have to write some equations, set of equations that will describe the whole dynamics of that system. And that set of equations are nothing but the mathematical modeling of the system. So for the control system analysis, we have to know the mathematical modeling of any system. So mathematical modeling of a dynamic system is defined as a set of equations that represents the dynamics of the system accurately or at least fairly well. Dynamics means variable. Dynamics, the dictionary meaning of dynamics means variable. How the output varies with respect to time for different values of input, that is dynamics. So we can define the system by a set of mathematical equations that are derived from basic laws. Basic laws like if we talk about electrical system, the basic laws can be KVL, KCL, Kirchhoff's voltage laws, Kirchhoff's current law and so on. And if we talk about the mechanical system, we have Newton's law of force as the basic law that can be used for the mathematical modeling of that system. So mathematical modeling is not unique to a given system. A system may be represented in many different ways and therefore may have many mathematical modeling depending upon one's perspective. The dynamics of many systems, whether they are mechanical, electrical, thermal, economic, biological and so on, may be described in terms of differential equations. For example, I have already told you that we can use the Newton's law for mechanical system and we can use the Kirchhoff's law for the mathematical modeling of any electrical system. Mathematical modeling may assume many different forms depending on the particular system and the particular circumstances. One mathematical modeling may be better suited than the other models. For example, for the transient response or the frequency response analysis of SISO system, that means single input, single output, linear time invariant system, the transfer function representation may be more convenient than any other method. So if we talk about the theoretical and practical approach, the difference between, and if we compare the theoretical and practical approach for the analysis of any system, so we can have 2 points, simplicity versus accuracy. Okay, the practical, obviously the practical system, if we analyze the system using practical approach, the accuracy is more. But if we analyze the system using theoretical approach with the help of mathematical modeling, it will be more simpler. So simplicity is more for theoretical approach and accuracy is more for any practical approach. But for practical approach, we need to have the whole setup of the system. So next, we discussed about the linear system versus non-linear system. So if we define linear system, a system is said to be linear if the principle of superposition applies. What is the principle of superposition now? Principle of superposition says if we have a linear element with the input x1t and having the output y1t corresponding to that, when we apply x2t as the input and we get the output as y2t, if we apply the input as k1 x1t plus k2 x2t and get the output as k1 y1t plus k2 y2t, then the system is said to satisfy the principle of superposition. That means the system is said to be linear in nature. So this is the definition of linear system that fulfills the principle of superposition. In an experimental investigation of a dynamic system, if cause and effect are proportional, then implying that the principle of superposition holds, the system can be considered as linear system. Now, what is linear time invariant and linear time varying system now? A differential equation is said to be linear if the coefficients are constants or the functions only of independent variable. But dynamic systems that are composed of linear time invariant lumped parameter components may be described by linear time invariant differential equations. So systems that are represented by differential equations whose coefficients are the functions of time, they are known as linear time varying systems. So this is the difference between linear time invariant system and linear time varying system. So in our study of this whole subject, we will consider the linear time invariant system as the basic to discuss the control system. Now again we come to the previous definition of transfer function. So transfer function that I have already told you, that transfer function may be defined as the Laplace of output divided by Laplace of input provided all initial conditions to be 0. For any LTI system, LTI means linear time invariant system, if we want to derive the transfer function, then how will we derive? This is shown in this slide. So for any linear time invariant system, we can define the system by this differential equation. This differential equation is shown in the slide. This y is the output of the differential equation, system, and x is the input of the system. Okay, this y dot stand for dy by dt, y double dot stand for d square y by dt square, y raised to power n minus 1. This shows dn minus 1 y upon dt n minus 1, n minus 1th derivative. Okay, this will be equal to b naught x m, b1 x m minus 1, b minus 1 m 1 dx by dt plus bm into x. So this is the differential equation of any linear time invariant system. So if we take the Laplace transform of both the sides, okay, because we have to find the transfer function. For transfer function, we have to find the ratio of ys upon xs. So for ys upon xs, we have to take the Laplace transform of both the sides. So if we take the Laplace transform of both the sides, taking initial conditions to be equal to 0, the Laplace transform of this a naught yn, this will be equal to a naught s raised to power n ys, s raised to power n, because dy by dt has the Laplace transform equal to s ys. So that's why a naught y raised to yn is having the differential, having the Laplace transform of a naught into, as I can show also, the Laplace transform of dy by dt will be equal to s ys by taking all initial conditions to be equal to 0. S square ys and so on. So what is this yn here? Yn is equal to d raised to power n y upon dtn, and its Laplace transform is, if we take the Laplace transform, then it will become s raised to power n ys. So these are the formula. If we consider the initial conditions to be equal to 0, we can take the Laplace of dy by dt directly to be equal to s into ys. So if we take the Laplace transform of both the sides, and then we will take ys common from the left hand side and xs common from the right hand side, and then we divide ys upon xs to be equal to this. So this will be the transfer function of this linear time invariant system. So this is how we can find the transfer function of any system, by taking the Laplace transform of both the sides and then finding the ratio of the Laplace transform of output to the Laplace transform of the input. So gs will be equal to ys upon xs. So this is the transfer function of the linear time invariant system. So ys can be written as gs into xs by cross multiplication. Now we come to the mathematical modeling of the electrical system. So electrical system can be modeled by three basic elements, as we all know. Any electrical system can be modeled by these three basic elements: resistance, capacitance and the inductor. So resistor, inductor and the capacitor, these are the three basic elements that are used for mathematical modeling of any electrical system. And we know that for doing the mathematical modeling we need some basic laws. So the basic laws that are used for the mathematical modeling of electrical systems are KCL and KVL, Kirchhoff's current law and Kirchhoff's voltage law. So now next is this, we all know that is the current voltage relationship of the resistor, inductor and the capacitor. If we take a resistance having the value equal to RT, and if IT is the current flowing through the resistance and VT is the voltage drop across the resistance, we can have the relationship between VT and IT as VT is equal to RIT according to the Ohm's law. So we can say IT equal to VT upon R. So for inductor, if we talk about inductor, L is the inductance of this inductor, IT is the current and VT is the voltage drop, then we can say VT is equal to L di by dt. Okay, this is the relationship between voltage and current across the inductor. So VT is equal to L di t upon dt. So if we want to find IT from here, IT can be find out as 1 by L integration of VT dt. So these are the relationship for the voltage and current from the resistance and inductor. Now we talk about capacitor. If C is the capacitance of this capacitor, IT is the current and VT is the voltage. So VT can be written as 1 by C integration of IT dt. So IT can be written as C into dVT by dt. So we must know these values of voltage and current across these three basic elements for doing the mathematical modeling of any electrical system. Because for the analysis of any control system we need to have the mathematical model of the process or the plant. So this is an example of any electrical system. If we take R, L, C components in parallel, okay, and we have a current source IT having the value IT across the parallel combination of R, L, C. Suppose VT is the voltage of this node, then we can apply the Kirchhoff's current law for the mathematical modeling of this electrical system. So if we apply the Kirchhoff's current law, we know what is KCL. According to KCL, the algebraic sum of the currents entering a node must be equal to the algebraic sum of the currents exiting the node. So while applying the Kirchhoff's current law at this node is having the voltage equal to VT, the current is entering from this current source, and let us assume the current is exiting from these three parallel components. So we can assume the direction of the currents from these components if the direction is not given. So we assume that current is exiting from the node across these three components R, L, C. So what will be the equation according to Kirchhoff's current law? This is the current entering the node IT, that will be equal to algebraic sum of the current exiting the node. So we have seen in the previous slide what is the value of current across R, L and C. So we write here, across R we can write the current as VT upon R, across L we can write the current as 1 by L integration of V dt, and across C we can write the current value to be equal to C dV by dt. So it is the IT is the current entering the node and it is the sum of algebraic sum of the current exiting the node. So we are taking the voltage of this node to be equal to VT and this node is equal to 0. We can consider this lower node to be equal to ground or at the zero potential. So we can write the KCL at this node VT. So this will be the basic equation. Now we will convert this integration of V dt by psi t. This psi t is known as flux linkage. We all know that flux linkage is equal to dV by dt. So we can replace integration of V dt here by psi t. So if we replace Vt by flux, we can replace Vt. This C dV by dt में Vt will be replaced by d psi by dt. So we will get C d square psi t upon dt square. Here square must be there in the denominator. For this factor Vt upon r, if we replace Vt upon Vt as the integration differentiation of psi t, so we can replace Vt as d psi t upon dt. So in this term we can replace integration of V dt by psi t simply. So we replace voltage by the flux linkages. So this is the relationship between the flux linkage and the voltage. Integration of V dt can be equated as psi t, or we can say Vt is equal to d psi t by dt, rate of change of flux. So if we replace Vt by the flux changes, we will get this equation. Now we have to find the Laplace transform of this system. So we have to find the transfer function of this system. We have to find the Laplace transform of output divided by Laplace transform of input. Input is it, as we can see in the diagram, ki input is current here. So input is it, and what is output? Output we can take as psi t, the flux change. So we have to find the ratio of psi s upon is here. So we have to take the Laplace transform of both the sides of this equation by considering initial conditions to be equal to 0. So if we take the Laplace transform of both the sides, we will get Cs square phi s plus 1 by r this s into phi s, because d by dt is having the Laplace transform of s phi s. Then we have phi s upon L is equal to is. Then we take phi s common from left hand side, and we will take the ratio of phi s upon is as equal to 1 by Cs square plus s by r plus 1 by L. So this will be the transfer function of this electrical system. So this is how we can find the transfer function. So firstly we have to write some differential equations that will explain the dynamics of this system by using some basic laws like KVL or KCL. Then we take the Laplace transform of both the sides, and then we take the ratio of the Laplace transform of output divided by Laplace transform of input. We can also change this phi s in the form of Vs also. Again we are having the relationship of V and I here, so we can take the Laplace transform of this equation also. From this equation we can find the ratio of Vs upon Is. So we can have the transfer function in terms of psi s upon Is also, we can have the transfer function in terms of Vs upon Is also. So this is how we can model any basic electrical system. Now we come to mechanical system. So we can have the mathematical or modeling of mechanical system also. Mechanical systems are of two types: translational mechanical system and rotational mechanical system. If we talk about translational mechanical system, we have three basic components of any translational mechanical system, that is mass, damper and this spring. Okay. What is this damper? This damper is also known as dashpot arrangement. This damper is also known as the dashpot arrangement. It is used to intentionally introduce the friction into the system. So these are the three basic elements. Like electrical system was having the basic elements as resistance, inductance and capacitance. Similarly mechanical systems is having the basic elements as mass, dashpot and spring. So for that we can write the equations for this translational mechanical system. For mass, if we write the force across mass, we can write force equal to mass into acceleration. Acceleration can be written in terms of velocity as dv by dt, and v can be further written as in terms of displacement as v can be written as dx by dt. So acceleration can be written as d square x by dt square. So the force across any mass can be written as m d square x by dt square. So now if we want to write the force, frictional force that is introduced by the dashpot arrangement or the damper, we can have the equation as Fb. Fb is the force, viscous force. Fb can be written as b into v. V is the velocity, and if we replace v by displacement, we can write v as equal to dx by dt, where b is the damping coefficient. So this is the force component across a dashpot or the damper. Similarly, if we talk about spring, the force across, the restoring force of a spring is proportional to the displacement. So the restoring force Fk can be written as proportional to x, and if we remove the constant of proportionality, we can write Fk is equal to k into x, where k is known as stiffness or simply the spring constant. So this is the force across the spring. So this is how we can define the force across the damper, mass and the spring. Now we come to the rotational system. As I have already defined the translational system, we have a rotational mechanical system also. Rotational mechanical system, there is a analogy between the rotational and the translational mechanical system. In translational mechanical system we talk about the force, and in rotational mechanical system we will talk about the torque. Okay. So what is the basic elements of any rotational mechanical system? It is the moment of inertia. Moment of inertia, the mass of the translational mechanical system is replaced by the moment of inertia in rotational mechanical system of this disc. Okay. Similarly, the damping is provided by this rod, and similarly the spring constant is here, it is defined as the value of K. So as we define force in the translational mechanical system, we will define torque here for the three factors in rotational mechanical system. Number one is the moment of inertia. It is defined as JA. JA can be written as, A is the acceleration and it can be written as equal to d omega by dt, where omega is the angular velocity. And if we write angular velocity to be in terms of angular displacement, we can write it like d square theta by dt square, where theta is the angular displacement. So the element opposes the rotational motion due to moment of inertia, and this opposing inertia torque is given by Ti, and that is equal to J d square theta by dt square. Similarly, if we talk about friction, then the Tb can be written as the frictional torque, can be written as B into omega, where B is the rotational frictional coefficient. So if we write the angular velocity omega in terms of angular displacement, we can write omega to be equal to d theta by dt. So this is the torque, this is the frictional or damping torque. Third is the restoring torque that is developed by the spring. The restoring torque of a spring is proportional to the angular displacement, as same as that we did in the translational mechanical system. There also the restoring torque was directly proportional to the translational displacement x. But here the restoring torque is directly proportional to the angular displacement theta. So if we remove the constant of proportionality, we will get Tk to be equal to K into theta, where K is the spring constant again. So these three are the opposing torques that are produced in any rotational system. So if these three elements of rotational system are similar in nature to those of translational system, as I have already told, no separate symbols are necessary to represent these elements. So as we use the KVL and KCL basic laws for the mathematical modeling of any electrical system, for mechanical system we use the D'Alembert's principle. What is D'Alembert's principle? It states that for any body, the algebraic sum of externally applied forces and the forces opposing the motion in any given direction is 0. So this is the D'Alembert's principle that we will use for the mathematical modeling of any translational or rotational mechanical system. We will take examples for that. For example, if we consider this translational mechanical system, this is spring, having the spring constant to be equal to K, this is the mass, and this is the frictional force, having the damping friction coefficient to be equal to B. So if we apply force here, force is represented by small f here, so this mass will be displaced by a distance x. So this x will be the displacement. So the other end of the spring is fixed here. Okay, so this is the translational mechanical system for which we are now explaining the mathematical modeling. So how do we define the mathematical modeling? So according to D'Alembert's principle, the force applied to any mass will be equal to the sum of all the opposing forces. As we can explain in the terms of any layman language, the applied forces must be equal to the algebraic sum of the opposing forces. So applied force is equal to F here, and opposing forces are because of this spring. Opposing forces is because of this damping coefficient, opposing forces of because of this mass. So if we write the equation, we will get the equations like this. Small f must be equal to m d square x by dt square plus b dx by dt plus kx. So this will be the equation of a translational mechanical system. This is the differential equation, second order differential equation we can say, that will define the dynamics of this translational mechanical system, simple translational mechanical system. So this is the mathematical modeling. If we want to find the transfer function, we have to take the Laplace transform of both the sides, assuming all initial conditions to be equal to 0. So if we take the Laplace transform of this side, we will get ms square xs plus bs xs plus k into xs is equal to fs. So if we want to find the transfer function, we will divide xs by fs and we'll get 1 by ms square plus bs plus k, where s is the Laplace operator. So this is how we can find the transfer function of any electrical or mechanical system. Now again we'll consider a small example of rotational mechanical system also. This is a disc. Having the torque equal to T, moment of inertia equal to J, and this is V, viscous coefficient of damping, this is K, spring constant, and theta is the angular displacement. So as I have already explained you how to write the equations, again the D'Alembert's principle will be applied to the rotational mechanical system also. The torque applied will be equal to the sum of all opposing torques. The torque applied is equal to T here, and all the sum of all opposing torques are due to moment of inertia, due to viscous damping coefficient, due to spring constant. So we will sum up all the opposing torques. So the torque applied must be equal to J d square theta by dt square plus B d theta by dt plus k theta. So if we want to find the transfer function, we can take the Laplace transform of both the sides. So if we take the Laplace transform and then we find the ratio of theta s upon Ts to be equal to 1 by Js square plus Bs plus k. So this is how we can do the mathematical modeling of any mechanical system or electrical system. Then by taking the Laplace transform of both the sides, we can find the transfer function also. Now what is analogous system? Important term arrives during the mathematical modeling, analogous system. Two systems are said to be analogous if they are having the same type of differential equation. For example, if we talk about translational mechanical system and rotational mechanical system, both are when we did the mathematical modeling of both type of systems, we get the transfer function to be equal to second order. Okay, second order ka transfer function. So if we are having the systems that are having the same types of transfer function or equations, then these systems are said to be analogous in nature. So once a circuit is designed with the required characteristics, it can be readily translated into a mechanical system. Now this is the force voltage analogy and this is the force current analogy. Here we will compare two analogous systems, an electrical system in which we have R, L and C in series, and here we get having the mechanical system translational as well as the rotational system. So if we compare the parameters, coefficients, then we can get this analogous table for electrical and mechanical system. Similarly, this analogous quantity is based on force current analogy. In force current analogy, we will take the electrical system to be RLC parallel. So RLC parallel, if we do the mathematical modeling of RLC parallel and we compare the coefficient with the translational and the mechanical rotational mechanical system, we can get this table also. So these are the analogous terms based upon force voltage analogy and force current analogy. For example, last example we will consider for this mathematical modeling is write the equation describing the motion of this mechanical system shown in the figure and also find the transfer function. So we have to find the transfer function of this mechanical system shown in this figure. So for finding the transfer function, we have to first do the mathematical modeling of this mechanical system. So the rules are the number of masses will be equal to the number of differential equations. So there are two masses m1 and m2, so there will be two differential equations that will explain the dynamics of this system. So firstly we will write the differential equation corresponding to mass m1 using D'Alembert's principle. Then we will write the differential equation corresponding to mass m2 again using the D'Alembert's principle. So if we see the mass m1 here, the force applied here is F and the opposing forces is due to B1 and K1 here. So the components that are directly connected to the mass will be taken into consideration. So for mass m1, F is the external force applied and B1 and K1 are the opposing forces. For mass m2, if we talk about mass m2, no directly force is applied, external force is applied on mass m2, but opposing forces are due to B1, K1, B2 and K2. So if we write the equations according to again D'Alembert's principle, we will get the equation for mass m1 as this. F is equal to, F is the force applied externally for mass m1 and the opposing forces are due to m1, b1 and k1. So if we write the equation will come out to be like equation number 1. Similarly, we will write the equation for mass m2. This will be written as shown in the equation number 2. This equation is for mass m2. No direct force is applied on mass m2, so it will consider to be equal to 0 here. And these all are opposing forces. So for mass m1 and m2, if we take the Laplace transform of both the equations, and then we can find the transfer function of that system. This is the electrical analogous system corresponding to the mechanical system shown previously. So this system can be derived from the analogy tables. So this is how we can do the mathematical modeling of any electrical or mechanical system, and can also find the analogous system corresponding to that. So this is the final transfer function. Ts is equal to x1s upon Fs. F is the external force applied and x1 is the displacement of mass m1. So by combining all the equations that were previously derived, we can find the transfer function, net transfer function. Thank you so much.